Alright folks, hello and welcome to another early bird special video, this time of Peter Molyneux's Godus, or 22 Kansas Godus. That's mostly Peter Molyneux talking about it. So, he's the master of over-talking all of his games. How did he do? Considering they claim this is only 40% done, I'd say they did a pretty good job so far. Sorry, I wasn't thinking I meant to save that for later. This is somewhere between Populous and a Facebook game. And if you're not looking for anything too deep, it's awesome for that. If you are, they might get there eventually. At the moment, as far as the early access that you can now purchase on Steam is concerned, there's not too much depth here, but it is plenty good for just passing time. If you're like me, who watches stuff in the background while rendering videos or while watching other videos or doing homework or whatever else, this is a great way to kind of have something to do that you're invested in somewhat, that, you know, keeps you occupied without actually doing anything. As I said, we'll see what goes on in the future, but yeah. So basically, what this game is, for people who aren't aware, it's eventually going to be basically a civilization simulator. Very, what's the term? Shoot, now I'm blanking on the words. Nothing here is necessarily a direct representation, like, yes, this is your person and this is his house, but they are abstractions, somewhat, of these concepts. Maybe not at the beginning, where you start out with 2 villagers and eventually you start expanding, and yes, you have a country of inbreds, but they start out small, and eventually you build to a thing where I've got, almost 2,300 people up here on the top. I may have almost 2,300 houses, but I kind of doubt I've spread quite that far. So I do think these are not quite one-to-one representations of my civilization thus far. The way stuff like this works is you can click and drag on the terrain, as you can see, and it drags it out. I haven't currently unlocked the ability to drag multiple sections at once. Super handy for doing things quickly. I kind of understand why they didn't give it to you immediately, because it would screw up early game balance. You kind of have to build your way up to being able to just throw down a civilization. But yeah, at the beginning you had to build belief by busting down a few rocks and trees, and eventually it would go, alright, well, there's enough space here, we'll build our first house. And you get a little, like, mud hut thing. Then eventually people would live inside that, and they would breed, and they would give off belief, which is these pink bubbles, which normally, as if I scroll up here, appears above the houses, and you can click it, and it makes this nice little song. And that's how you gain belief, and when you gain belief you can then do more terrain dragging and other things. And eventually this little flag pops up. You click that. Someone from within that house, who is not the original breeding pair, will run out and begin building a new house. And he will live in it, and he, in and of himself, will apparently undergo mitosis and multiply. And, yeah, so that's more or less how that goes. Eventually, after you build for a while and you get a nice group of houses going, you get enough money for what's called a settlement. And it replaces one of your existing blocks here with this statue. And I think if I have a bigger one up here somewhere, yeah, it eventually starts looking kind of like a courtyard. I'll go over all that stuff in detail later. And what that does is it builds these little roads randomly in between all the houses within a certain radius. Those are then connected, and all of their belief accumulates in this tower. So boom, 1061 all at once. And if I were to hover here for about a minute and a half or so, it would start collecting more and have another tiny little bubble up there. Additionally, you have these little dudes in white who are different from your little dudes in blue, who seem to just kind of navigate around. It's like villagers in town walking around talking to each other. They don't actually do anything, they don't even interact, they don't stop and look at things, they just kind of wander. But it makes it look a little bit more like your city is somewhat alive. Not great, but it's there. Ignore the weird butterfly effects. I have this thing called Beautify. There was some sort of weird plague that rippled through my town that I had to come and replace, and that's a side effect of that. So, eventually I spread out. I connected these two chunks of land together, started spreading out between it and do what? Oh, I still have one of these old houses. This is a house right here that did not, or that's been here since the beginning of the game. Originally, our houses were all this ugly little shack. Normally, you can't do anything to replace those, but once you get a certain distance into the game, you have two options. One, you can spend the cash to get this Finger of God ability, which costs 10k, and what that does is that it's not a single use of the Finger of God. I watched a Total Biscuit video earlier today, and he talked about how, oh my gosh, $10,000 to destroy one house. That's not quite true. It is 10,000, not dollars, I believe, to activate Finger of God mode temporarily. And at that point, you get a little finger that appears, comes down over your mouse, and every time you left-click, it smashes down. And so you crush people, you destroy buildings, you kill wolves, you flatten trees, set things on fire sometimes. And then that wears off. So, if all of these were old houses, I could click that and go and blow through it all. I doubt I would actually be able to get all of it before it wore off. It seems to have kind of an arbitrary time limit. It'd be better, I think, if it had a certain number of uses before it went out, something that it denoted by the finger. But as it is, yeah, it's a certain amount of time, I believe. The other option, the little more annoying option, if I drag a piece of land in there, I've busted up the house. It cannot be supported on the amount of land that is there. And boom, okay, the house is gone. And if I drag this out a bit, this can eventually become... Okay, good enough. Several houses. So there we go, and those will all come up in this new wooden style. I have the technology to build better houses, but I don't have all the resources yet, and I will get to that later on. So, keep spreading out. I eventually get to these little monuments, which will typically be on the very edge of your range after a certain point. And what that does is you build up around it, and eventually villagers will go and finish the construction. They start out as sort of a dilapidated wooden column, or not wooden, stone column. Looks like it's like a ruin. They finish it off, add this little golden topper, and it gives you a card, which if I open up this is our, basically like a little Civipedia type thing. It gives you a card for none of those. Just gonna back up until I find it. Here we go, land expansion. And you see I have 18 of those. And, yeah, as more followers believe in you, your influence will grow. So what that does is you get that, and it goes, boom! Suddenly, you can affect all the way out to the next one type stuff. Let's see, I think it reached to just about here. So then, keep building out to here, make a little staircase for these guys to go up the mountain here, and they started building up here, and I found this thing, which also started as a sort of dilapidated group of stone columns. Sorry, readjusting in my seat here. When you finish that, it goes into the Mount of the Gods. At that point, you can click on it, and it takes you to this screen. Now, normally, it jumps immediately into a small little skirmish mode. You can see all these little stars with the check marks in them. And it jumps to here, and there's a little fake conversation between, mock internet people of oh, hi, I see you've reached this stage of the game, would you like to play? And then eventually there's, their friends, and I've seen some actual controversy of the first person you meet is this Amy X, who, as it goes through the various conversations as you start each of these, is a 15-year-old girl who doesn't know all that much about the internet, but she's really enjoying this game. She's not really supposed to be on. Her dad's got some issues with her, playing around while she should be working type. It's moderately interesting. And she has this story arc of, oh, I've met this guy online, he doesn't want to join us, so he asked me all these questions, and he's super cool and helped me with all this stuff, so I can't actually play any farther right now. I haven't reached the right prerequisite, but it makes it almost sound like she's found some sort of creepy internet stalker. It's either that, or she found Peter Molyneux, and he's asking her about the game. But yeah, it's kind of a weird situation, but it's a fun way to move through the story right now. I don't think it would fit the end game as far as it seems like it's going very well, but it's kind of a fun, hey, the game's in testing, here's some people who are also testing it with you, since currently large-scale randomized multiplayer is not available. I do have this little thing over here, which I found later, which if I click on it, opens up this list of my friends, and I could invite people, hey, do you want to play a single multiplayer thing in Godus? But I only know one person who owns it right now, and he's not on very often. It also makes this weird line of counting down text show up. I'm not entirely sure what that is, and it goes away if I ever restart, but yeah, it's there. So, yeah, as you keep moving on, you keep building buildings. Technically, it would be far more efficient if I just flattened everything out, but that seems boring to me. I mean, the land looks kind of ugly like that, so I've tried to keep some trees, and I've tried to keep some rocks. Not too many rocks, I don't like the rocks. But I mostly try to keep trees and stuff around, keep the differences in elevation where I can, and then, give some variance. What you'll also find while moving around, I believe there's one just outside my range that I can't reach, you will see these little fluttering blue and red pages. That's sort of what they are. And if I keep going, there's one right on the edge of my... Here we go. There, see these fluttering blue-white pages, and these squares. Sometimes they'll be squares, sometimes you won't be able to see them. They'll be so far underground, but you'll always see the pages fluttering over an area. These are chests, and if you use your little god powers to excavate these chests, you can open them up and get resource cards, which I'll move back to the main part of this. There, I'm a little low on belief right now. It's actually up to like 200k, but I got into a big project, which I'll show later, and that has kind of dwindled a bit. So, you'll eventually get, put it up, these cards. So, here you go, flint, and clay, and plaster, and meat, and kindling, and all sorts of stuff. And you'll also sometimes get, either through just finding the chests, or through playing those multiplayer matches, you'll find these like advancement cards. This is a society card, this is a science card, and they require a certain amount of these. So for example, I am now working towards the end of the expansion period, and so for mining I needed coal, pickaxe, and whatever this is. I actually have not found any of this, so I don't even know what it is. It looks like it's like wooden planks, maybe? So, yeah, I'm not entirely sure what that is. But yeah, I have not yet found any of those, and I think I'm out of chests in my area. I've been trying to dig up too much random land in hopes of finding it. But then those will give you certain new things, like, for instance, pottery. If you hit this thing here, in fact, the followers' health is increased by having pottery, by way of they now have, clay onions. Wow, yes, they've built clay onions, and they look really fancy. My guys are super into agriculture. No, they make ovens and pots, and yeah, so that, their food stays fresh because they store it somewhere, and so, yeah, that's the sort of thing that you are developing. One of the other things when you get the calendar is you unlock the day-night cycle. What it really is they will actually act different as the time passes, quote-unquote, so, they'll be less busy during the nighttime, more busy during the day. I imagine they eventually intend to put in some sort of seasons situation, but they have not yet. And what you'll also sometimes find from opening chests, and mostly from the combat, are these advancements. So, apparently I have a Samson follower. I have not actually seen one. But you get things like here, cliff sculpting. I can sculpt multiple layers of terrain, or I get things like, moving plots around. Before someone actually starts building a building, you can manually move the little white square around it. It's kind of fidgety, it's not great. And the exact bounding boxes of these houses is not always obvious. And you also get other god powers like Meteor Strike, and things like that. So, fairly basic advancement. And you just, you go on, you build up around until eventually you find something interesting like these giant monuments, or this, which these are gems, and I'm not scrolling up there for a reason. They look like gold, but actually what it is it's these gems up here, which if I click it, there's an upgrade store where everything eventually can be bought with gems. I have seen via the Total Biscuit video that on mobile versions of this game, they apparently have intentions of making basically the same game and porting it over to mobile, since it's a lot about clicking and stuff, and that's easy enough to do with your finger. They will have microtransactions to buy more gems and get more stuff. because this game is very much a Farmville-esque, lots of clicking to collect belief and stuff like that, as you've probably already seen a little bit. On the PC, it's super easy to advance beyond that to the point where you can just build settlements and click them and get all that. There's a limit to that, but I'll get to that in a second. Whereas on the mobile platform, there would be microtransactions. So, for us, once I actually get the mining upgrade, my people will I can send out my villagers and they'll begin chipping away at this. And they'll give me gems. There's a multiplayer mode where it's a large thing of gems in the center, or off to the side, or however it is, and you're racing against the other person to mine more gems. Which I can still do because it gives me the gem mining technology in the multiplayer game, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do it. What you also find are things like this. This is super cool, by the way, it just looks really awesome. I unfortunately did not manage to stumble upon it on my own. There was previously a massive cliff here. I knew this was in the game somewhere, but I did not know where. I ended up seeing a thread on the forums about it and pieced together where it was from that. Apparently, what this does, if I were to go through and fully excavate this sucker, it makes it so that these gems here continuously respawn, or regenerate, so that I pretty much would have infinite gems around this statue. And so, you know, that seems like it's worthwhile for the effort and belief it would take to dig this sucker out. I'm a bit annoyed that you can't have your people start reshaping the land. Like, you can't have them start straightening their own roads, or making these sections of the ground a little more fitting for them, or building their own staircases, things like that. It's a shame. It'd be kind of fun to set this as like an excavation point, demark it off, and have them dig it all out themselves, and you'd have little like quarry stairways and stuff. That would be really awesome. But there's no way of doing that. In addition, those resource cards can only be gained through the chests, and also the multiplayer, which I am unfortunately unable to progress in. You can only get those through that, which means, since I can't reach any more chests right now, I just heard somebody's door close. Since I can't get any more chests right now, I cannot actually progress. I could probably play multiplayer with some friends if I could get them this game, and hope to get the resource cards I need. But otherwise, I can't do anything. It'd be awesome if I could send my little villagers out and go, oh hey, I need planks or whatever, so chop down some wood and maybe like right-click on this building and say, oh, make it a sawmill or something like that. As it is, it's kind of hit a point of stagnation. I can't even really continue to spread, because I have patrolled around the outer edges of my place here, and I don't actually see any more of those expand your borders idols. I feel like there may be some buried that I would need to find, but they don't have a telltale sign like the floating stuff over the chests. So it's kind of crapshoot of like, oh, here, I could just dig this out. There's one like 20 stacks down. I wouldn't know that. Same with here. Maybe if I dig straight down, there's something there, or over here, or anything like that. And so it's kind of hard for me to keep going at this point. I can keep spreading and giving my people places to live, and that's fun for a time. But I've kind of outgrown any point to it. I think I really just got unlucky. But yeah, what you can do, if you ideally, if you run out of stuff like I have, is I could come in here and ooh, okay, I'm a little too far there. As you can see, there's this little gem picture here. I could click this, and oh, I'm low. I need to buy some. Buy. But it's 30 gems, and I only have 20 left. And since I'm working on mining now, I actually have no way of getting more gems. And because I haven't found any of that wooden planks or whatever it is, this is sandstone, this is different. It's here. I haven't found it yet. I can't actually buy it because as far as I know, it doesn't exist. So, yeah. That's a little annoying. even if there were more hints of like, oh hey, no, you can still get that, there's some hidden right here, or there's a statue hidden right over here, or, you know, it's maybe not even that big of a thing, just like, this whole region looks a certain way, try digging there, type stuff would be very helpful. So that is a shame. The other major complaint I've heard from a lot of people is that it's a lot of clicking, of like, oh, I gotta do this all the time. Honestly, I have not very much. I've been super inefficient, and I just kind of leave these sitting here until I find I need belief, with the exception of the spots where I have these settlements that are just gradually farming it out. And as you can see, I started this with, what, like 10, 15k up to 43,000? That's pretty good for 20 minutes. I could honestly have a whole lot more if I went through and clicked every single one of these houses. But, you know, it gets a little tiring on the fingers. And people don't want to click on everything. Plus, music's kind of nice for a little while, but eventually it's like, okay, it's the same tune over and over and over again. I'm not being drawn in by the sound anymore. A way of solving that is maybe a bit tricky, just for the way it works. They have a way of making it faster, but that way of making it faster is the settlement. You already get that. Which, unfortunately, as you build more of them, gets more and more expensive. As you can see, for me now, it is 100 gems to place a new one. It was originally, I think, 2,000 belief, then 5,000 belief, then 10,000 belief, then I went to 50 gems, and then it was 100. So at this point, I cannot build another settlement. It is outside of my reach. And unfortunately, I was not especially efficient at placing my settlements. I could probably expand here and make this one settlement more efficient. This one's pretty much got as much as it's going to do. I could expand out this way maybe a little bit, but there's not much I can do to get much more. People have suggested having it be click and drag to collect all the belief. I think maybe there could be some sort of collect all on the screen type deal. I'm not sure how you do it. Maybe like a diminishing returns. If you don't want to do it quickly, get only 80% of it all and just go, like, double both click or double middle click or something, because right now the middle click just moves the camera, so it'd be super easy. But, you know, something to kind of ease the process and make it so it's not just like, click, 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 move over here, click, 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 and then, you know, you want to do something over here, click, 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 because you can double left click, expands, double right click, contracts. It's fairly intuitive. It's a little bit wonky. Doesn't always work quite the way you want, but it works well enough for the majority of purposes. So yeah, the clicking is aggravating. I understand why it's a thing, especially if they're planning on moving to a mobile platform. But there are other ways that they could do stuff like this. Currently, it is very much like a Farmville or a Castle Age or any of the... Well, not Castle Age, Castleville, though, definitely. Where it's just, okay, I pan over my little civilization here, click everything that has a little icon over the top of it, and then wait 10 minutes and then do it again. It's faster than a Facebook game, certainly, but, and eventually you go large enough where you can pretty much make an endless loop and always be getting belief. But, for the current lack of actual content, it doesn't actually give you much. You're building up belief to keep expanding, to keep building houses, to keep getting belief. There's no ulterior motive. You aren't really working towards the advancement of your people, because after a certain point, the advancement of your people just kind of stops. So, it's a self-perpetuating loop of technical uselessness, as it is right now. It's fun. I mean, it's fairly engaging for what it is. Let's see if I can get a house out of this piece of land here. No! Wait, there needs to be steps. There need to be steps. There we go. There we go. Yeah, you could build that. See, it's fairly engaging for what it is. But what it is really not much. If I open up the book here, I can go and show. I am currently in... I'll go to the commands in a second. I am currently in the primitive age, working on the growth period. The growth and expansion periods, I guess. Not sure why that one's not dark. I think I finished that one. But you will eventually be building through the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Philosophical Age, all that sort of stuff, all up to Space Age. You will potentially eventually be launching space shuttles from your civilization. Currently, with the way cities advance and the fact that you have to manually replace all the buildings, I don't see that really holding together long enough. I have seen a recommendation from one person to have, if you have a large enough settlement, have certain buildings upgrade to the schoolhouse, the firehouse, the police station, the bank. That would be very fun, or if you could choose it yourself. That kind of thing would be really awesome, to have your cities eventually become cities, not just collections of houses, but working mechanisms for making your city function. Additionally, it'd be kind of cool if you had some sort of power. Maybe it would take a little bit of belief, as opposed to dragging the empty plots around takes nothing. You would just do it. If you could have belief and scoot an existing house over a bit, or instantly upgrade it, or things like that, would make it so much easier to make the city the way you wanted to, without your people doing what they need to do, but getting in your way in the process. Currently, if you have some people running around doing something else, and you're trying to arrange to have a large plot, it's very, very easy for you to make just enough space for a single small plot, and while you're expanding the space to make it big enough for a bigger plot, someone runs over and starts building a little house, and then you're screwed. You have to stop him, get him to run away, possibly wait for him to die, and then do it again. The villagers, by the way, as I was saying, but they're kind of an abstraction. When you click on your house and send one out, they will emerge into the world and immediately look for jobs in the nearby vicinity. If I had mining, I guess I'll close this. If I had mining, I could send one out like this, and he would run over here and start mining. We don't, however. He's lucky there's actually a house plot over there to build, which will probably actually get destroyed here eventually when I continue excavating this. So he runs to his nearest job. It's building a house. The only other jobs they could possibly have, aside from building a house and mining, is building one of these suckers. If they don't have any of that, they'll generally kind of wander around in the town, and then wander out towards the outskirts, hoping to find other jobs. If they don't find another job, eventually they will actually just keel over and die. You can stop this from happening, to a certain degree, by... There we go. Let's send this guy out. If you click them, oops, you see this little plus 100, you give them their health back. You reset the life process. And theoretically, you could follow a person around and do that forever, and they would never die. You wouldn't be able to do anything else in the process, because otherwise they'd die as soon as you look the other way. But you can kind of suspend their death and keep them working for you. Otherwise, villagers are kind of worthless. They don't improve the landscape, they don't do anything with other villagers, they don't go around and fix buildings, they just wander, build new buildings, or die. Also, if there are wolves around, they will get eaten by wolves, but you can kill those by clicking on them, so it's not a huge deal. And, you know, it's kind of annoying that they don't do anything. I have a million flags here, but if I click on any of them, I'm just sending people out to their death, and when people die, they actually lose you belief. And I suppose that makes sense of, like, how could our god not have stopped this type thing? But it's kind of a pain that it takes you belief to bring a person out into the world. It takes like 20. Let's see. Yeah, 20. Come on, work with me here. It takes belief to bring them out into the world, and then if they die because they weren't able to do something, you've now wasted that belief, and that person is useless to you. Ah, got it just in time. So you've now spent, instead of 20 belief, you've spent, I think they lose 50 when they die, so you've spent 70. And what good is that at that point? So I'd really like to see there be more to do with the villagers, more to do with the buildings and towns. That sort of thing would make the game more engaging when you want something other to do than go around and click ping balls. And when you can't actually play in this section of the game, the single-player false multiplayer, because you're not advanced far enough. And, you know, it's fun beyond that. There are other things I'd like to see in the game. What was one? I saw something in here. Oh, the commandments. I'm going to show these. These are part of things that I do very much like. So, rocks, unattractive as maybe, must be respected as if they god, because I've left rocks around, except for the ones that I've busted up. The holiest land to settle upon is the deserts and shores, because that's where I started, and I made a huge sandy area. And trees must be respected, because I have actually kept some within the town, so my people see them as semi-holy, I guess. There's actually only one other commandment even possible to get, which, if I back up, I think I had that one for a while. The progress of civilization is a sinful abomination in thy God's eyes. That's probably one you don't want, but, you know, since there's only 4 to get right now, only 4 programmed in the game, you're probably not going to actually get anything other than one of those 4. What was I saying? I was distracted, the screen would have cut there, and then, oh right, so the commandments, there's not much in there, but I like the idea that your people's mindset changes with how you are sculpting their world around them. So that kind of thing is pretty fun. Just going back looking at it, just mindlessly. That kind of stuff I'd like to see more of, where your actions actually influence things, aside from just, you know, making the world, seeing the world actually react to you differently, would be very fun. You know, I have some very generic things I'd love to see more of in this kind of game, like, actual things your people could harvest, maybe having a way for your people to start farming in empty plots of land, different building types that actually do different things, more villagers, maybe some more animals. There's wolves right now, they're kind of broken. I believe I've seen some things where you have, like, cattle. The things like that, just, even with the system as it is, just having more things for the villagers to interact with and respond to is good. I'm not gonna sit here and just keep listing off everything they could do to improve it, because that's what the forums are for, and there are people out there with lots of cool ideas. So if you're interested, and you were a backer, go swing by and check it out. If you weren't, well, you can get on there by, buying the early access on Steam, so you could try doing that. Otherwise, I think I've said all I wanted to say, had a lot more random, hemming and hawing than I wanted on top of that, and yeah, just kind of drew this out longer than I needed to go, but I hope you enjoyed, I hope this was interesting to you, and I'm gonna keep playing it, keeping an eye on it. I'm kind of sad that my civilization will inevitably be wiped out when the actual game goes live and another big update changes everything, but it's quite fun for now. So yeah. Oh, and if you do buy this game, or if you already have and you haven't just gotten around playing it yet, your world will be identical to mine. Currently, they do not have randomized starting locations. The eventual goal is to have one giant overarching world that everyone sort of is in, distantly touching each other. That is not the case right now. You would just be in this same exact world plot. If you were to build this direction and dig out this mountain, you would find this statue. So, yeah, that's kind of how that works. So don't expect too much, procedural content in it just yet. That said, your world won't look the same as mine because it's really fidgety and you'd probably never be able to make it exactly like mine, but, if you weren't to try, it would probably end up different. Anyway, keep on going when I shouldn't. Hope you enjoyed this. I will see you folks later.